Hi guys, in today's video we're going to be making this. Okay, so let's just get right into it. In a new scene, we're going to want to press A and then X to delete everything. And then if we press Shift A, Mesh, and then Cylinder, and we're going to want to come down here and set this to about 64. I had 32 in the last in the scene I just showed you, and I didn't feel like it was enough, unfortunately, but here we are, we're doing it again. So if we right click this object and click Shade Smooth, and then come down to the green vertex object data properties tab here. And then we go to normals and then auto smooth. That just fixes the weird shading on the cylinder. Okay, so we just want to scale this down just a tiny bit, and then press Shift A and then apply that scale. And then if we go into front view by pressing 1 on the number pad, and then we can go into edit mode, which if you press tab on your keyboard, it'll bring you into edit mode. I've got an add-on, which is why I get that pie menu, but if you just press tab, it'll go straight into edit mode. And then just click off the object to deselect everything. Then you're going to want to come up here and press this button for face select. And then we want like an even number on either side to have the walkway that goes up to the the main platform. So I think if we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on that side. And then we press 7 on the number pad to go up to top view, and then we can press E to extrude and just bring it back on the along this y-axis. And then if we press S, Y, and then 0 on the number pad, that just scales everything along that y-axis and just makes it like a flat platform. So if we press G and Y and just bring that back slightly, and then we want to spin our camera around underneath. And then if we select this face here, and then press Control, and then select this face, you see it goes along and selects all the faces between as well, and that's because it's picking the shortest path, and that happens when you press Control when you click. That works on edges as well, so you can Control click and it'll just find the shortest path around the object. It's quite a useful tool to know. So yeah, if we just go up to face mode, and then select this face, and then press Control, select this face, and then press Shift, to select to add the round face to our selection. And then if we press G and Z or Z just to bring this down, because we want it to go out of the shot quite far, and that's our main platform done. This is quite a sharp cutoff. If you want, you can select this edge in edit mode in the edge select, and this one, and if we press Control B and just bevel it slightly. And if you roll up on the mouse wheel, you'll get 2 segments, and that just makes a bit of a smoother transition onto that platform, which is great. That's what we want. It's not sharp now. So if we go back into edit mode and go on face select mode, what we can do is you'll see that I had a strip of lighting going down the platform and then around the circle. So if you select this top face here, and then Control and select this one, and then Shift to select that, and you press I, that's going to inset the faces. And we just want to do that slightly, so just very subtly move your mouse, to sort of shrink that in. And then press I again, and then just shrink this in a bit further this time. And what we're going for is this edge here. This edge of faces. So now, if we press Alt and select one of the lines that are going this way, not this way, if we press Alt and select, that selects the whole face loop, which goes around the edge, and then down, and then back here, and then down again. So that's just going to get us our strip lighting, essentially. So now with that selected, if we press E to extrude, and then it should automatically snap to the Z-axis, and just pull that down. And now you'll see that we have a strip lighting going around. At this stage, it's probably easiest, while you've got it still selected, if we come down to the Material tab and just add 2 material slots, and then press Assign on the bottom one, and then press Control I to select everything else, and then come to this top slot and press Assign. What you'll see is that's now got it's applied two different materials to the object. The reason for that is that if we click this bottom one and click select, you'll see that it's got this sort of strip lighting, and we're going to want to add a new material to this. And then instead of the principled BSDF, if you click here and swap this over to emission, and then kind of give it a green color, and then maybe bump it up to about 5, and we'll see the result of that in a second when we go in, when we add a camera. And then for now we can just add a new tab, a new material here, and just call this metal, and I guess call this just like strip light. I'm just going to make that a bit more sort of a more neon green. Okay, so it's getting a bit hard to see kind of the line, it's looking a bit strange. So what I'm going to do is come up to this little arrow here for the shading tab, and I'm going to want to click on backface culling, which I'll show you in a second, and then cavity, and then change the type to both. And that kind of just gives a sort of edge to everything and just makes it slightly easier to see. It's still not perfect, but it's a lot better. Another thing you can do is you can click random, and now if every time you add something into the scene, it assigns it, oh that's not a good example, it assigns it a random colour. It just helps break stuff up so it's not grey, just horrible grey. This will do for now, and I'll keep the random colouring on, why not? Okay, so the next thing is to get the cylindrical room that encompasses this platform. So again, we press Shift A, Mesh, Cylinder, keep it at 64 and keep it just all the settings sort of the same. And we want to scale it up to sort of just cut off the platform there, and then press SZ and just scale it up to make quite a tall sort of chamber. And then again, right click smooth, come down to the object data, and then under normals, click auto smooth. And now obviously that's blocking our view of the platform. What we're going to want to do is we come into edit mode, go into face mode, and then select everything with A. And if we press Alt N, that brings up this normals menu. And if we press flip, you'll see that that essentially makes the faces from the outside face in. So now on the outside is the back of the face. And that's what back face culling does. It gets rid of the back faces. So you can see basically you can see through the objects, and it's great for doing rooms like this. If you're making like ArcViz, or like you're making an actual like square room, it's another trick. You just do that, flip the faces inwards, put on back face culling, and it doesn't block your view. But if you come inside to sort of the cylinder, you'll see that it is there, even though you can see out of it essentially. Okay, so just to make sure our scale and everything's right, I'm just going to press Shift A and add in a camera, and then if I drag this over and then press 0 on the number pad over this window, and then if we press Shift and apostrophe, the button under the @ symbol, we're going to like first person game mode almost, like walk mode. And what we're going to want to do with this is just fly our camera back to kind of like here maybe. I mean, this is obviously up to you for the composition. With our camera selected, I'm just going to come under viewport display, and then under pass part out, just drag that up, and that kind of gets rid of the clutter, so you can you're only seeing what the camera's actually seeing. And then under output properties, I'm just going to swap these around. So I'm going to make this resolution 1080 and the Y resolution 1920, and that kind of gives it that portrait look, kind of phone wallpaper look. I'm just going to fly this back to sort of about there. Obviously we can change this as we go along, so that's fine. The next thing I'm going to do is swap over to rendered mode. So if you come up here to this bar, you'll see that because it's a smaller window, it's cutting off some of the options. You can scroll your mouse wheel, and that kind of goes along, it scrolls along the bar, and we can flick it over to rendered mode. And we want to be in EEVEE for this. Under the render tab, we can go to EEVEE. And then you see the problem here is that the camera is outside of the cylinder, and the camera doesn't have backface culling on it. So what you're going to want to do is just, if we fly that in just kind of through the cube, you basically the origin point, this orange dot has to be on the inside of the cube. Because it's quite close up now, what I am going to do is I'm going to select the cylinder and this platform, and then we press S and just scale everything up just to make it a bit larger. And then select the camera. I'm just going to press GZZ, and that'll slide the camera along its like local Z axis, and then we can just bring this back kind of to about here. And then under the camera settings, if we change this to 35 millimeters, that'll just like kind of bring everything into a bit, it'll make the camera angle wider so we can see more. And then we press RZ to rotate it on its Z axis, just to bring it back. And then I'm actually going to shrink the platform down to fit, because I think the cylinder is big enough. So yeah, that's kind of the composition that we want. I'm going to come into the world settings here, and I'm just going to turn the strength down on this background to get rid of the grey kind of colour. We want it to be black, and we only want it to be lit by the screens and lights that we add in ourselves. The next thing is just to get a bit of lighting, just so we can see what we're doing inside the cube. If we press Shift A, come under light, and then add in a area light, you'll see it's in the middle of our platform here. But I'm just going to drag it down on the Z axis, and then press RX and then 180. Just type in 180 on the number pad, and that's just going to flip it around 180 degrees. And then if we come to the light setting here, we can make this a disc so it fits our cylinder shape, and then we can just bring this up with S to scale it up to about the size of our cylinder. And then if we drag up the power just to illuminate some of our scene, to about there is probably good enough. If we just bring it up maybe to about there, yeah, that looks fine to me. On this screen, I'm just going to press T to get rid of the toolbar, and then press Home on the keyboard, and then scroll out, and then basically Home just fills your screen with the camera view. It's a really good tip, because if it's like here, you can't really see it, you press H, it fills it up, and then I like to just scroll back out just so I can definitely see the edge of the frame. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is just set up some of our render properties. So we come to this render tab here, check ambient occlusion, and then put this to about 2 meters. And then if we hit the balloon button, that'll give this kind of glow to our lighting, which kind of just adds to the scene a little bit. And then we're going to want to hit screen space reflections, because we're going to add a metal texture to the walls and this platform, and we want to get some of the kind of flickering lights effect on there. And then under shadows, I'm just going to bump this up to 1024 and then click high bit depth. And that's just going to make our shadows just a bit higher quality, but that will affect performance depending on what number you choose there. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to recess this floor just a slight bit. So I'm going to come into edit mode, select this top face, press I to inset it. Then I'm just going to press E and then Z, just to bring it down just slightly. And then I'm going to go into edge select mode up here. And I'm just going to select this edge, press Ctrl to pick this edge, and it'll pick the shortest path. And then I'm going to press double G to go into edge slide mode, and I'm just going to slide them up so they're touching. And then press A to select everything, then M, and then merge at distance. And you see that removed 9 vertices, and that's it's just removed these vertices here. So there's no double vertices now. And that's just to give it kind of a ramp down to this sort of central platform here. Okay, so the next thing is we go into top view mode by pressing 7 on the number pad, and then shift right click and just kind of put our 3D cursor into the middle of this platform. I've put a link in the description so you can download this model. It's a model of the computer terminal. It took me quite a while to model it, and I didn't want to put it in this video because that's not the purpose. You can just make a basic sort of shape, but I thought I'd provide that for free on my Gumroad. So just download that blend file. So you're going to want to come to File and then Append. And then in this window, if you navigate to where you saved the download, for me it's in Models, Sci-Fi, Sci-Fi Terminal, you're going to want to see the Sci-Fi Terminal.blend. If you double click and go into that blend file, then under Collection, if you click Computer, and that's just going to bring in the computer model. It's brought it inside, unfortunately. If you select the model, the way I've set it up is it's all parented to the base. So you can just select the base of the computer and then press GZ, and then just bring this up on the Z axis. And you see this is to scale, this is to sort of world scale. So that tells me that the room's not the right size. So I'm just going to select the light, the platform and the cylinder and then just scale everything up and then bring it down just so the computer kind of fits on the platform and kind of in the right sort of scale. If we press 3 on the number pad to go into side view, and then if we go into wireframe mode, we can press G and Z and just bring everything up just so the terminal is kind of intersecting the floor just slightly, just so we know it's on that ground floor plane, like that. And back into solid mode to see that. And now our camera is obviously not in the right place, so if we press G, double Z, and then just slide it back, bring it up slightly, bring it up slightly, and then rotate it along its local x-axis. And then this light, because we've scaled the light up, we're going to need to make it a lot brighter. So just drag that up until we get kind of the same effect as that we had earlier. And then if you fly your camera kind of just into a position, just reset the composition. Again, I want to be able to see kind of that glowing walkway. Like there, looks good. I'm actually just going to scale this down slightly. And then bring it up. There we go. Because the camera's going to animate and slide into the screen anyway, so that's fine. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is we're going to want to kind of get some text on this screen. So you'll see that the screen has a material slot. For this model, I deleted it just so we can follow along. So we click the screen, which is green for me here. You'll see that it's just a separate piece. And then if we come here and then click new, and then add the screen in. Screen map, the screen material. And then if we slide up this bottom one and then go into the shader editor, we're going to want to do a few things just to sort of set up this material. Okay, so the first part of this is we're going to get rid of the principled BSDF shader, and then we need to add in 2 emission shaders to kind of get the green glow and then to get the red glow. So we just set this to green, Shift D, and then set this to red. And then if we add in a mix shader, and then just set this to 0. Basically with the mix shader, if it's at 0, it's just showing the top slot, which is this emission shader. If it's at 1, it'll show this emission shader. And then if it's sort of like 0.5, it'll kind of blend them both together. So we'll just set it to 0 for now, just so we've got the top one. And then we're going to want to add in another mix shader, plug this into the bottom, and then we need to add in a glossy shader just to get some sort of reflections, because obviously it is a screen. I'm just going to bring these down, zoom out a bit, and we're going to want to plug this glossy one into the top, and then if we leave that on 0.5, that'll kind of get us a nice reflection. Then we plug that into the material output here, and then in this window I'm just going to go into rendered mode. So you'll see what happens with this factor is it flicks between green and red, and what we're going to do is we're going to animate this value to be at 0 and then suddenly go to red, and suddenly go to the bottom shader, which we're going to set up in a second. But obviously the whole screen is glowing at the minute. We only want text to glow on the screen. So what you need to do is you need to open up sort of either Photoshop or GIMP or something like that, just an image editor. If you don't have Photoshop or GIMP, don't worry. I'm in the download that you got from Gumroad of the model. I'll include kind of these materials that we make. If we open up a new file, like I said, it can be Photoshop, GIMP, or like whatever. It could even be Paint. It's not all you need is black and white. And we're going to want to make this quite high. So we do 1920 by 1080. I'm actually going to go up to sort of like 2560 just to get a long file here. And then we need the background to be black, and then we need text, and we need this to be white. And then what you're going to want to do is if you go to this website, which I'll link in the description, or you can just type it in hackertyper.net, you'll notice that it's just a blank screen with this blinking cursor. If you just hold space just for a while, just to get some basic kind of nonsense like hacker text, because obviously it doesn't really, you can type in your own data if you really want to have like a story on the screen. But this is what I did. I just held down space, just generated a load of nonsense kind of text, and then kind of get a bottom line, just to make sure. I'm just waiting for this to sort of be the finished bit, okay? And then, because it's just text, if you click here and just scroll up, highlight all that text, right click, copy, come over into your image editor, drag a box out, paste that text that we just got in, and then you're going to want to make sure it's left aligned. Swap over to Courier, which is a free font that's included with your computer. Courier New Regular, that just kind of gives it that look, and then drag it down because we want each line to be on its own thing essentially. Yeah, that looks good to me. You want a bit of black kind of towards the top left, you don't want it right up against it. And then actually we can probably just drag this out a bit, just to get all that text that we got in. Why not? I'm just going to make sure that the background is completely black because that's what you need to do to make sure it works. And then if we go File, Save As, you can save this as a JPEG or a PNG. If you're in Photoshop, you can just save it as a Photoshop file, which I'm just going to save it as a PNG. I'm just going to call this sort of hacker text. You can save that. And then the other kind of image that you need is you need a sort of exclamation point or whatever you want to be read. You want it to go to the warning. So it could be a separate message, it could be a shape. So what I did was I just went into the polygon tool, clicked 3 sides, gave it a white stroke of just a few pixels, and then Control T, rotate this over, scale it up, hold down Shift, just make it a bit more of an equilateral triangle, bring it into the middle, or the top. It doesn't really matter where this is because we can control it within Blender, and then just add in a exclamation mark. Make sure that that's white. Add in your exclamation mark just into the middle. And then I'm actually just going to make this stroke a bit thicker. And then file, save as. Again, I'll just save this as a PNG, hacker text, put it like computer error. Save that. Again, these images will be in that Gumroad file just in case you want to use them if you can't make your own. Okay, so what we need to do now, back in Blender, if we press Shift A and add in a image texture, and we're going to want 2 of those, and then with it selected, you press Control T, make sure you've got the Node Wrangler add-on, which is in the preferences here. And then what that means is that if you press Control T, when you hover over it, it'll add this mapping and texture coordinate node. We just need to do that with both of these, and just drag them down. So then we want to open up the top one. That needs to be, so the top one, which we're going to plug into the green emission, you want that to be your sort of hacker text, or just whatever text you want to be in green. So that's going to be my hacker text PNG file. And then the bottom one is going to be the exclamation mark. which is here. So if we drag in the color of these to the strength value, you'll see what that's doing is anywhere on this file that there is white text, that's going to be a strength. Oh, that's going to be anywhere that there was white on this file, it's going to be a strength of 1. It's just the same as putting this to 1. Anywhere that it's black on the file, that's going to be strength of 0. So we plug that back into the strength. Obviously that's not really that bright. We want it to be like a lot brighter than that. So we can press Shift A and add in a math node. Change this over to multiply, and then set this to kind of however much you want. Like set this to a value that you're happy with, and you get like a nice bright kind of glowing screen. I'll set this to like 18. That seems fine. If we press Shift D, and then we can drop to duplicate it, and then just drop that over this line here. You'll see it goes white. And that's just going to do the same for our red text. And don't worry about it not being on the screen at the minute. So you'll see that that's what happens there, is it fades between these two shaders. So we'll just leave it on 0 for now. Okay, so now if we drag out a new window, press N to get rid of this, we want to go over to the UV editor. And then in edit mode, if we go to edit and then faces and just select this screen by pressing L, and then zoom out, you'll see that the face here, it's kind of squished and it's showing all of this text. Obviously this is a square. So what we're going to do is we press S and Y and just shrink it down kind of until it looks right on the screen. And then if we just move this up in the UV editor here, just so the top of it aligns with the top of our text here, and then come out of edit mode. So now what this mapping node does is it maps where this UV block is. It kind of controls where that is, like on this picture. So you'll see that if we move the Y location on this, you'll see that the text scrolls. If you hold down Shift when you drag over Y, you'll see it goes a bit slower. If you press Shift and then Y, you'll see that this scrolls here. And we can animate this value to kind of make it scroll, stop a bit, and then scroll again, and then stop, and then scroll, and stop. And we can make this sort of cyclic, so it just constantly goes on a loop, which is what we're going to do now. So we just reset this to 0. And then if we drag up a new window here, swap this over to the timeline. If we go to frame 1, hover over the Y symbol here, and then press I on the keyboard. And that's just going to set a keyframe for the location of this file. And then if we go forward, if we select this node, we can see that keyframe, so you see it's there. And then if we scroll forward, say a second, providing that you are on 30 frames a second here, go forward a second to frame 30, and then just scroll the Y by holding Shift and scrolling. It looks like it needs to go down, so into the minuses. Set it to kind of like there, and then press I. And then if we go back, you'll see that it now scrolls on the screen. And you see it starts off slow and then goes fast and slows down. You don't want that, because when it cycles, it won't look completely, it's like it's just constantly cycling around. So if you press T, so with these keyframes selected, if you press T and then set that over to linear, and what that does is it just animates it. It's kind of, it's the same speed all the way along, essentially. Okay, so now you see that scrolls. In my animation, what I did is I had it scroll in a little bit, and then really fast, quite quickly, and then another like small amount. So what we want to do is we can scroll this. If we go over to frame 30 again, I just want to bring this up a bit because it looked a bit too slow to sort of about there. I mean, I'm happy with that kind of scroll. So then we want it from frame 30, we want it to go really quickly back to the start. So it essentially loops round. And we can see that on frame 1, the top line here is struct group underscore info initiate underscore groups. We want to match this up for our last frame, but if we just duplicated this here, you'd see it goes down and then back up again, which we don't want. So you can't do it that way. what we need to do is we need to kind of scroll this round so it loops back up to that line. So you see what I mean here. So if we press shift, scroll up, keep going just until we see that first line. I think it's that struct group info. You see it's -1 meter. I'm pretty sure that'll be the same for you as well, minus like 1 meter exactly. It might not, depending on the size of your file. So just scroll up till you see sort of it background at the top. And then if we press I again, so now you'll see that it scrolls kind of slowly and then really fastly. And then we want it to wait just slightly there. So now we can press Shift D, duplicate that across. And then if we leave the timeline editor for now and go over to the graph editor, what we can do is on here, with screen matte selected, shader node tree, and then this Y value, if we press N to bring up this property panel here, we can click modifiers, add modifier, and then cycles. And then you'll see that that scrolls, and then it's just infinite now, just all the way along. It's just constantly doing those sort of keyframes before it. So we watch this back, see it scrolls, goes really fast, scrolls, goes really fast, scrolls, just constantly. Which actually, I'm thinking I don't like that, that it holds so long. So I'm just gonna go back over to the timeline, and then I'm just gonna delete this last keyframe. So now it'll scroll fast and then carry on scrolling. Maybe have it hold for just a couple of frames. Watch that back. Okay, so you can tweak these until it kind of looks right. I'm not really liking this. I think what I did in the last video is just going to delete those keyframes for now. So I had it scrolling for like a little bit. Bring that down to kind of like there. Press I. Then I had it hold for 2 frames. And then I had it scroll some more. And I had it hold for a couple of frames. And then I had it scroll kind of to that 1 meter mark. -1. I select everything, press T, linear. Let's have a look at that. But yeah, you want to play with these just until it kind of feels right for you in your animation. Here you go. So you see that loops back around. It's looping. I'm kind of happy with the speed of it. Again, this bit's up to you. So that's fine. That's going around cycling. At some point along the animation, we want it to suddenly go to the exclamation mark. So what we want to do is we press Shift with that Node Wrangler add-on. Something you can do is you can press Shift Control and then click on a shader, and then we'll see just that shader. It'll skip all of this and it'll just plug that straight in, which is what we want. And then now what we want to do is with this location, we just need to hold Shift and then drag this up just so it's on the screen, kind of in the right place. So there looks fine to me. And we're not going to animate this value manually ourselves. What we are going to do is if we press Shift Control click on this mix shader just to go back to the end result, at kind of some point along this animation, say 120 frames, at 118 frames, if we press I on the mix shader, this one here that controls which bit of text we're seeing, press I on 0, and then if we go forward to sort of frame 120, flick that over to 1, and then press I, you'll see that kind of that controls now that it's scrolling, and then suddenly the red exclamation mark is on the screen. But you see my original animation, I had it kind of shake as it came onto the screen, and the way I had it flick onto the screen is if we control shift click this emission shader again, just so we can see it, at frame 120, where we know we want it to be on the screen, I'm just going to press I over location just to set its location there. Then if we go back a couple of frames, and then just drag it kind of into a position that you're happy with, kind of up here, and then say like frame, don't forget to set the keyframe. So drag it into a position you're happy with, and then press I again. So you'll see that now it kind of scrolls back into where it needs to be. I'm just going to drag the final frame there on 120, kind of just drag it the other direction. Press I to set that keyframe. So now you'll see that it kind of flicks down and then back up. So if we press Ctrl Shift click on this mix shader, just go back to our animation and then play that through, you see that it kind of like shakes onto the screen, which is the first part of the effect. Now what we want to do is if we drag this back up and then go back over to the graph editor and then select this mapping node that we just set those keyframes on, and then we can delete the Z-axis because it doesn't have an effect here, so we can just get rid of that and you'll see that our animation still works. But then if we click on the Y value and then under modifiers here, again if that's hidden you can just press N on your keyboard and that'll bring it up, and then we want to add in noise to this, and you'll see that it adds a wiggly kind of bit of noise to it. So our keyframes are still there, but it just adds a bit more of a random element to it, and then you'll see that as it plays out it's still shaking on the screen, which I think that's probably a little bit too much. So with this selected and you've got your noise here, we can just decrease the strength slightly by holding Shift and just scrolling. See it kind of shakes a little bit. If we hold the scale, increase the scale, that'll just make sure it won't jump as fast, kind of like that. I could probably bring the strength down just a little bit more as well, because we just want it flickering. And then if we press this button here, which copies this modifier, and then click over to X here and then paste it, so you'll see it goes, so you see it bounces on the X-axis now as well, so it's not just going up and down, it's going side to side. You can play with the offset here to just get a bit more randomness to it. What that does is it just kind of drags it along kind of to where so it just takes that noise, it doesn't change any of the speed or anything, it just shifts it along just to sort of vary it up a bit. So you'll see that if we play this back, so now it's shaking on the screen, and that's kind of it. It'll just do that infinitely now. Okay, so that's the shader set up. It's working just as we wanted it to. So it scrolls through, and then the alert pops up. So that's really good. The next thing we want to do, and kind of the last thing, is to get the screens all around the sort of side of this dome. The way we're going to do that, so we select our cylinder. If we go into edge selection mode, into edit mode and then edge, I'm going to press Control R to go into edge cut mode. You can just click wherever, it doesn't matter because we're going to delete this anyway. But we just want to get this ring of edges. Then press Shift D to duplicate it. You'll see that I've copied that ring. So I can just right click to leave that in place, and then press P and then separate the selection. And then we can just select the ring, then we can just select that ring that we just made and click delete, dissolve edges, or you can leave it, it's not a big deal. What we want is we want this circle here. So if we just drag this up, just so we can see what we're doing. If we go up to Object, Set Origin to Geometry, that's just going to put the origin in the middle of the circle. Then what you want to do is you want to select the circle that we just created, go up to Object, Convert to Curve, and that's just going to give us an object that we can work with a modifier in just a second. I'm just going to get rid of this shader editor because we don't need that anymore. Join area, just drag that down. Okay, so we've got our curve. Now we need the actual screen to kind of go along it. So if you press Shift S and then put cursor to selected, that's just going to put the cursor in the middle there, and then we can press Shift A, mesh, and then add in a plane. And we want this is our screen that we're going to put all around the room, the edge of the room. So with this, we just scale it along the X-axis just to get it a bit more screen shaped, and then press Ctrl A and then apply that scale. And then we want to go into edit mode, into edge selection, and then press Ctrl R again press Control R again. That's just going to get the loop cut function. And we're just going to scroll our wheel because we need this to we need the screen to bend around. We need the screen to bend around this curve. So you can kind of just put enough in. You probably want more than you'd think just to get a nice bend, kind of like there. That should be fine. Then if we go into face selection mode and then press this face and then again control click to select all of those faces, we can press I to inset to about there. You're going to want to make sure individual is unchecked, and then you can press E to extrude and then just extrude in slightly to kind of have that screen like you would have like a monitor. And then if we go back to edge selection mode, press Alt on the edge of the original plane and then press E and Z just to give it a bit of depth essentially. We're not going to put a back face on this because we're not going to see it, and obviously we want the back face culling to work so we can see through them. Okay, so that's our screen made. If we press RX90 and then to tip it up on so it's the right way up, and then press Control A and then apply the rotation, what we're going to want to do is come over to the modifier tab with that selected and then press and then add an array modifier to it. You're going to want to play with this offset here under relative offset just to get a bit of a gap between them. So then once we've got two screens, that'll do for now. We can add in another modifier, which is the curve modifier. And then from this curve object, we're going to want to select it'll be called the cylinder probably. It's basically this object here we want to select. And you'll see our screens are pointing in the wrong direction here. So if we select them and then go into edit mode, select everything and then press RX 180. That's just going to flip it the other direction, so now they're pointing the right way. And then you want to press right click and then shade them smooth, and then come over to our normals and click auto smooth as well. That just gets rid of that weird shading issue we had with them bending. So now you see that the bending, and there's two of them from our array, and then the bending around this curve from our curve modifier. So if we up the count, you'll see that we're adding more screens to the bend here. With 18 screens, they are intersecting a little bit, which we don't want. One way to fix that is if we go back into edit mode and then just scale this down along the x-axis just slightly, maybe down on the Z as well, just to keep it in proportion as a flat screen. Just to keep it in proportion as like a flat screen, and then go back to object mode and then add in kind of two more, and you'll see we get a perfect circle of screens here. You might need to play with that kind of value because as you see, depending on how big or wide you make it, it kind of cuts in. So you want it to just, you need to keep going back and playing with it just until you get the gap right. I seem to have done it quite well there. So now if we add in another array modifier after this curve modifier, I'm just going to collapse these. We need this to sort of fill our cylinder. So if we don't want it to offset on the x-axis, we want it to offset on the z-axis. So in factor x, press 0, and then under the z, bring this up to sort of 1 or 1.6 there, kind of just until it looks right again for you. And then we need to add in a bunch of these just to fill our cylinder. And then press G, Z, and just bring these down kind of until they're in view of our camera. You can leave the curve up there. That's just, it doesn't matter where that is, just don't move it out of the center because it affects this kind of weirdly. Leave it right where that is. Okay, we're nearly there, I promise. This is the one of the last bits. So we've got our room, we've got our cylinder room. Because this is the width of our cylinder, we might want to just click our cylinder, press S, Shift Z, and just scale it up slightly just so it's not completely intersecting with the screen. So we want a bit of a gap between them just to get some nice shadows. And you see that from top view, kind of the screens are just a little bit away from the wall, which is fine. So with our screen selected, if we press / on the number pad, that'll just go into local view. And And then if we go back into edit mode, and then press period key on the number pad or full stop, and that'll just zoom in on the one object that we've got. And then we need to go to face select mode, press this face, control, click this face, go down to materials, click new. We want to add in the terminal screen. No, we want to add in the screen material that we made in that earlier first step. Select that one, press Ctrl I to select the frame, and then add in a new material with the plus button, click assign, and then you can just call this like black plastic. Drop this to black, that's just going to be the frame of the screen. So now you can see that we've got the screen here and then we've got the black kind of bit here. And then we need to UV unwrap this screen here. So now we need to just unwrap the panel screen, the UVs, and flip them and squish them just to make it actually look correct. So if we drag up our panel here and make sure we're in the UV editor, if we press U, unwrap, so that's going to get the proportions correct. And now we just need to, and now if we hover over the UV editor, press A, R, and just rotate this so it's the right way, it's orientated the right direction. So it looks like I need to just rotate it 90 degrees and then bring this up so it's in the frame. And then press S to scale there, but then press SY to scale it just, to scale the height of it. It's kind of like there. There we go. So again, just scale your UVs until it looks right on the screen. Go back into object mode, press / on the numpad again to go out of local view. So now you can see that inside our cube, they are lit up with the same information on the screen. If we go onto the timeline, you see that as we go along, it's animated, and then we've got the text on the screen as well, kind of at the start, and this matches the text that's on the screen here. And you see when we put on screen space reflections here, we've got the reflection on this platform. What we want to do is we go to the material on this metal, we just turn up the metallicness of this to make it nice and shiny. We reduce the roughness maybe. Pick a darker color. Nice dark black. We can probably apply the metal to the actual cylinder as well. I think I called it material, was it? Called metal, okay. Add the metal material to the actual cylinder. And there you have it. You've got your animated walls of text. Just to make this a little bit better, finish it up, let's drag this light down slightly. You'll see that it was having a bit of a glare on the screens at the bottom. If we just drag that down to about there. If we press Shift A, mesh, press Shift A, add in a light and go to point light. Press period key again just to find that. Bring it down. Under the settings here, we can just increase the radius just to make it a bit bigger, make it a bit brighter. Just because we want to get a bit of light kind of at the top as well. And then if we make that kind of like a greeny color, what you can do as well is you can animate the color of that light. So I've got it green here, and then as it flicks over to, we want it green, bright green. If we hover over the color and then press I, you'll see a little keyframe starts. Then we go over to the red. So when the screens go red, and then make it red, press I. So you see that the color of that light changes now from green to red, just to add to the atmosphere. And then what I also did is on this keyframe, if we select our platform, go over to the materials tab, under the strip light, we do the exact same thing. So we press I on the green, go forward till it's red, select the red color, press I. You'll see now it's green, it goes through, and everything goes to red. And then the last thing is to get our camera and animate the camera. So we select our camera, you can see it's here. If we press I to set its location and rotation we want, and then if we go towards the end of our animation, like call it, so let's say 200 frames. At frame 200, if we hover over here and then press Shift and apostrophe again, just to fly our camera, we want to fly it over to see the screen. Kind of frame up how you want it, press I, location and rotation, select both keyframes down here, press T, linear, and then that's our animation done. As it goes on, the camera's going to zoom in. You'll see that was just having trouble playing back. It was working. Go back, watch it. Kind of it goes red, everything's flashing. Yeah, and there's our animation. What I'm going to do though, just because it's a bit dark, I'm just going to press Shift D, duplicate this light here with all of its keyframes on it. Just bring this down on the Z-axis to about there. I'm just going to reduce the brightness of that and the radius. And I'm just going to place it in top view. I'm just going to place it in top view, kind of just off to the side of our console here, maybe down. We don't want to see the reflection of it necessarily. Kind of like that. The reason for that is just so we can see a bit more of the actual console as well. And I'm just going to quickly turn down the bloom. I think it's a bit too intense. There, raise up the threshold. There we have it. And there we have it. There's our animation playing in the background, and it will loop forever. Like, depending, you could have that set to 1000, and the red exclamation mark will animate, and the green will just keep on going. So that was a long one. Hope you liked it. If you struggled with any part of that following along, just let me know in the comments, and I'll either do a follow-up video to kind of clarify, or I'll just answer your comments. I'm going to include this project file over on my Patreon as well, so if you sign up there, you'll get this file. And like I said, the textures and the model, they're on Gumroad for free in the description as well, if you want to check them out and download them to follow along. But I always encourage making your own thing, so obviously you've learned how I've set up this scene, but like take that and run with it and make your own thing. If you do make this tutorial and make anything, it'd be great if you posted it on social. You can tag me. My links to my social medias in the description below as well. But yeah, that was a long journey. If you made it this far, thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that subscribe button to see more of these tutorials when I make them. And if you hit the little bell notification, you'll be one of the first to see those tutorials when they go live. But yeah, I think that's everything. Cheers, thanks for watching. Bye.